15. Get my knife, the gunslinger said. It's in my purse. He gestured towards a cracked leather bag lying on the sand. It looked more like a bag of pack sacks than a purse, the kind of thing you expected to see hippies carrying as they made their way along the Appalachian Trail, getting high on nature, and maybe a bomber joint every now and then, except this looked like the real thing, not just a prop from some airhead self-image, something that had done years and years of hard, maybe desperate, traveling. Gestured, but did not point. Couldn't point. Eddie realized why the man had a swatch of dirty shirting wrapped around his right hand. Some of his fingers were gone. Get it, he said. Cut through the tape. Try not to cut yourself. It's easy to do. You'll have to be careful, but you'll have to move fast just the same. There isn't much time. I know that, Eddie said, and knelt on the sand. None of this was real. That was it. That was the answer, as Henry Dean, the great sage and eminent junkie, would have put it. Flip-flop, hippity-hop. Off your rocker and over the top. Life's a fiction and the world's a lie, so put on some credence and let's get high. None of it was real. It was all just an extraordinary vivid nodder, so the best thing was just to ride low and go with the flow. It sure was a vivid nodder. He was reaching for the zipper, or maybe it would be a Velcro strip, on the man's purse, when he saw it was held together by a crisscross pattern of rawhide thongs, some of which had broken and been carefully reknotted. Reknotted small enough so they would still slide through the grommeted eyelets. Eddie pulled the drag knot at the top, spread the bag's opening, and found a knife beneath a slightly damp package that was a piece of shirting tied around the bullets. Just the handle was enough to take his breath away. It was true mellow gray white of pure silver, engraved with a complex series of patterns that caught the eye, drew it. Pain exploded in his ear, roared across his head, and momentarily puffed a red cloud across his vision. He fell clumsily over the open purse, struck the sand, and looked up at the pale man in the cut-down boots. This was no nodder. The blue eyes, blazing from that dying face, were eyes of all truth. Admire it later, prisoner, the gunslinger said. For now, just use it. He could feel his ear throbbing, swelling. Why do you keep calling me that? Cut the tape, the gunslinger said grimly. If they break into your privy while you're still over here, I've got a feeling you're going to be here for a very long time, and with a corpse for company before long. Eddie pulled the knife out of the scabbard. Not old, more than ancient. The blade, honed almost to the point of invisibility, seemed to be all age caught in metal. Yeah, it looks sharp, he said, and his voice wasn't steady. 16. The last passengers were filing out into the jetway. One of them, a lady of some 70 summers, with that exquisite look of confusion which only first-time flyers with too many years or too little English seem capable of wearing, stopped to show Jane Dorning her tickets. How will I ever find my plane to Montreal? She asked. And with my bags? Do they do my customs here or there? There will be a gate agent at the top of the jetway who can give you all the information you need, ma'am, Jane said. Well, I don't see why you can't give me all the information I need, the old woman said. That jetway thing is still full of people. Move on, please, madam, Captain MacDonald said. We have a problem. Well, pardon me for living, the old woman said huffily. I guess I just fell off the hearse. And strode past them, nose tilted like the nose of a dog scenting a fire still some distance away, tote bag clutched in one hand, ticket folder with so many boarding passes stubs sticking out of it that one might have been tempted to believe that the lady had come most of the way around the globe, changing planes at every stop along the way, in the other. There's a lady who may never fly Delta's big jets again, Susie murmured. I don't give a fuck if she flies stuff down the front of a Superman's jocks, MacDonald said. She the last? Jane darted past them, glanced at the seats in business class, then poked her head into the main cabin. It was deserted. She came back and reported the plane was empty. MacDonald turned into the jetway and saw two uniformed customs agents fighting their way through the crowd, excusing themselves but not bothering to look back at the people they jostled aside. The last of these was the old lady, who dropped her ticket folder. Papers flew and fluttered everywhere as she chirruped after them like an angry crow. "Okay," MacDonald said. "You guys stop right there." "Sir, we're federal customs officers." "That's right, and I requested you, and I'm glad you came so fast. Now you just stand there, because this is my plane, and this guy is in there in one of my geese. Once he's off the plane and into the jetway, he's your goose, and you can cook him in any way you want." He nodded to Deary. "I'm gonna give this son of a bitch one more chance, and then we're going to break the door." "Okay by me," Deary said. MacDonald whacked on the bathroom door with the heel of his hand and yelled, "Come on out, my friend. I'm done asking." There was no answer. "Okay," MacDonald said. "Let's do it." 17. Dimly, Eddie heard an old woman say, "Well, pardon me for living. I guess I'll just fell off the hearse." He had parted half the taping tape. When the old woman spoke, his hand jerked a little and he saw a trickle of blood run down his belly. "Shit," Eddie said. "It can't be helped now," the gunslinger said in his hoarse voice. "Finish the job. Or does the sight of blood make you sick?" "Only when it's my own," Eddie said. The tape had started just above his belly. The higher the cut, the harder it got to see. He got another 3 inches or so, and almost cut himself again when he heard MacDonald speaking to the customs agents. "Okay, you guys stop right there. I can finish and maybe cut myself wide open, or you can try," Eddie said. "I can't see what I'm doing. My fucking chin's in the way." The gunslinger took the knife in his left hand. The hand was shaking. Watching the blade, honed to suicidal sharpness, shaking like that, made Eddie extremely nervous. "Maybe I better chance it Wait." The gunslinger stared fixedly at his left hand. Eddie didn't exactly disbelieve in telepathy, but he had never exactly believed in it either. Nevertheless, he felt something now, something as real and palpable as heat baking out of an oven. After a few seconds, he realized what it was, the gathering of this strange man's will. How the hell can he be dying if I can feel the force of him that strongly? The shaking hand began to steady down. Soon it was barely shivering. After no more than 10 seconds, it was solid as a rock. "Now," the gunslinger said. He took a step forward, raised the knife, and Eddie felt something else baking off him. Rancid fever. "Are you left-handed?" Eddie asked. "No," the gunslinger said. "Oh, Jesus," Eddie said, and decided he might feel better if he closed his eyes for a moment. He heard the harsh whisper of the masking tape partner. "There," the gunslinger said, stepping back. "Now pull it off as far as you can. I'll get the back." No polite little knocks on the bathroom door now. This was a hammering fist. "The passengers are out," Eddie thought. "No more Mr. Nice Guy. Oh shit." "Come on out, my friend. I'm done asking." "Yank it," the gunslinger growled. Eddie grabbed the thick tab of stripping tape in each hand and yanked as hard as he could. It hurt like hell. "Stop belly aching," he thought. "Things could be worse. You could be hair-chested like Henry." He looked down and saw a red band of irritated skin about 7 inches wide across his sternum. Just above the solar plexus was the place where he had poked himself. The blood welled in a dimple and ran down to his navel in a scarlet runnel. Beneath his armpits, the bags of dope now dangled like badly tied saddlebags. "Okay," the muffled voice beyond the bathroom door said to someone else. "Let's..." Eddie lost the rest of it in the unexpected riptide of pain across his back as the gunslinger unceremoniously tore the rest of the girdle from him. He bit down against the screen. "Put your shirt on," the gunslinger said. His face, which Eddie had thought as pallid as the face of a living man could become, was now the color of ancient ashes. He held the girdle of tape. now sticking to itself in a meaningless tangle, the big bags of white stuff looking like strange cocoons in his left hand, then tossed it aside. Eddie saw fresh blood seeping through the makeshift bandage on the gunslinger's right hand. "Do it fast." There was a thudding sound. This wasn't someone pounding for admittance. Eddie looked up in time to see the bathroom door shudder, to see the lights in there flicker. They were trying to break it in. He picked his shirt up with fingers, then suddenly seemed too large, too clumsy. The left sleeve was turned inside out. He tried to stuff it back through the hole, got his hand stuck for a moment, then yanked it out so hard he pulled the sleeve back again with it. Thud, and the bathroom door shivered again. "Gods, how can you be so clumsy?" the gunslinger moaned, and rammed his own fist into the first sleeve of Eddie's shirt. Eddie grabbed the cuff as the gunslinger pulled back. Now the gunslinger held the shirt for him, as a butler might hold a coat for his master. Eddie put it on and groped for the lowest button. "Not yet," the gunslinger barked, and tore out a piece away from his own diminished shirt. "Wipe your gut." Eddie did the best he could. The dimple where the knife had actually pierced his skin was still welling blood. The blade was sharp, all right. Sharp enough. He dropped the bloody wad of the gunslinger's shirt on the sand and buttoned his shirt. Thud. This time the door did more than shudder. It buckled in its frame. Looking through the doorway on the beach, Eddie saw the bottle of liquid soap fall from where it had been standing beside the basin. It landed on his zipper bag. He had meant to stuff his shirt, which was now buttoned and buttoned straight, for a wonder, into his pants. Suddenly, a better idea struck him. He unbuckled his belt instead. "There's no time for that." The gunslinger realized he was trying to scream and was unable. "The door's only got one hit left in it." "I know what I'm doing," Eddie said, hoping he did, and stepped back through the doorway between the worlds, unsnapping his jeans, and racked the zipper down as he went. After one desperate, despairing moment, the gunslinger followed him, physical and full of hot physical ache at one moment, nothing but cool ka in Eddie's head at the next. 18. "One more," MacDonald said grimly, and Deary nodded. Now that all the passengers were out of the jetway as well as the plane itself, the customs agent had drawn their weapons. "Now!" The two men drove forward and hit the door together. It flew open, a chunk of it hanging for a moment in the lock, and then dropping to the floor. And there sat Mr. 3A with his pants around his knees and the tails of his faded paisley shirt concealing barely his jack-handle. "Well, it sure does look like we caught him in the act," Captain MacDonald thought wearily. "Only trouble is, the act we caught him in wasn't against the law, last I heard." Suddenly, he could feel the throb in his shoulder where he had hit the door. What, 3, 4 times? Out loud, he barked, "What in hell's name are you doing in there, mister?" "Well, I was taking a crap," 3A said. "But if all you guys got a bad problem, I guess I could wipe myself in the terminal." "And I suppose you didn't hear us, smart guy." "Couldn't reach the door." 3A put out his hand to demonstrate, and although the door was now hanging askew to the wall on his left, MacDonald could see his point. "I suppose I could have gotten up, but I, had a desperate situation on my hands, except it wasn't exactly on my hands if you get my drift. Nor did I want it on my hands if you catch my further drift." 3A smiled, a winning, slightly daffy smile, which looked to Captain MacDonald approximately as real as a $9 bill. Listening to him, you'd think no one had ever taught him the simple trick of leaning forward. "Get up," MacDonald said. "Be happy to, if you could just move the ladies back a little." 3A smiled charmingly. "I know it's outdated in these day and age, but I can't help it, I'm modest. Fact is, I've got a lot to be modest about." He held up his left hand, thumb and forefinger roughly half an inch apart, and winked at Jane Dorning, who blushed bright red immediately and disappeared up the jetway, closely followed by Susie. "You don't look modest," Captain MacDonald thought. "You look like a gat that just got the cream." "That's what you look like." When the stews were out of sight, 3A stood and pulled his shorts and jeans. He then reached for the flush button, and Captain MacDonald promptly knocked his hand away, grabbed his shoulders and pivoted him towards the aisle. Deary hooked a restrained hand in the back of his pants. Don't get personal, Eddie said. His voice was light and just right. He thought so anyway. But inside, everything was a free-fall. He could feel him clearly. He was inside his mind, watching him closely, standing steady, meaning to move in if Eddie fucked up. God, it all had to be a dream, didn't it? Didn't it? Stand still, Deary said. Captain MacDonald peered into the toilet. No shit, he said, and when the navigator let out a bray of involuntary laughter, MacDonald glared at him. Well, you know how it is, Eddie said. Sometimes you get lucky, and sometimes it's just a false alarm. I let off a couple of real rippers, though. I mean, we're talking swamp gas. If you'd lit a match in here 3 minutes ago, you could have roasted a Thanksgiving turkey, you know. It must have been something I ate before I got on the plane. Get rid of him, MacDonald said, and Deary, still holding Eddie by the back of the pants, propelled him out of the plane into the jetway where the customs officer took one arm. Hey, Eddie cried, I want my bag, and I want my jacket. Oh, we want you to have all your stuff, one of the officers said, his breath heavily with the smell of Malox and his stomach acid puffed against Eddie's face. We're very interested in your stuff. Now let's go, little buddy. Eddie kept telling them to take it easy, mellow out. He could walk just fine, but he thought later the tips of his shoes only touched the floor of the jetway 3 or 4 times between the 727's hatch and the exit to the terminal, where 3 more custom officers and half a dozen airport security cops stood, the custom guys waiting for Eddie, the cops holding back a small crowd that stared at him with uneasy, avid interest as he was led away. Thank you guys for sitting down with another part of Majin reading the drawing of the 3. I know it's a shorter episode, but we've just finished a chapter, and frankly I don't feel like it's a good idea to go into a next chapter and, leave the story hanging. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. Right now we have the option to put a pause. We're leaving hanging because we don't know exactly what's going to happen to Eddie, but it's a good point to finish today's episode. So with that being said, see you tomorrow. Long days and pleasant nights, listener.